Now, in the UK at the moment, the uniparty, the establishment, the government, and the opposition are all very, very rattled by people power in many, many different ways. And what they are doing at the moment is talking up the narrative of extremism, that the UK is full of extremists that need to be tackled. This is for two main things that have happened recently. First is George Galloway's victory in the Rochdale by-election, which rattled Labour and the Tories because he got more votes than them combined. And they are also rattled by the continuing protests in London every Saturday against the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians in Gaza and the collective punishment of those people by the Israeli government. I need to say at this point, not everybody in Israel agrees with what the Netanyahu regime and the Israeli Defense Force is doing. That is a rotten regime, and they are acting absolutely appallingly, so badly that South Africa has brought a case of genocide against that regime to the International Court of Justice. But in the UK, protests are going on, and they show no sign of abating, and they are now being smeared by the government and some of their advisors, who are calling them extremists and people who are going out of good hearts because they do not want a continuation of the slaughter and suffering of the Palestinian people. They are being smeared as extremists or extremist facilitators as well. Now, there is a definition of extremism written by the government in the UK. It was written about 10 years ago when a program to tackle Islamic or Islamist extremism called Prevent was set up. But it is a very bad definition, and it is a very subjective definition. And the problem with words like this, with subjective definitions, is that the law should be objective, and it tends to try and criminalize people and put sanctions and surveillance on people who have not committed any criminal offense. Real crimes are things like assault, murder, criminal damage, vandalism. We know this, but extremism is a concept that seeks to bring you into the criminal justice system just for your words. And this is why it is wrong. The definition of extremism at the moment is the vocal or active opposition to our fundamental values, whatever that means, including democracy, the rule of law, individual liberty, and the mutual respect and tolerance of different faiths and beliefs. Well, according to that definition, the opposition to individual liberty could be applied to every single MP who voted for lockdowns and no job regulations for care home workers, which was going to be extended to doctors and nurses in the NHS back in 2021, 2022. They would all be guilty of extremism for undermining individual liberty. Have any of them been referred to the Prevent program to be surveilled? Perhaps have electronic tagging and monitoring? No, they get away with that scot-free, and they don't refer themselves to the extremist program, which they should perhaps do. On this, I might be labeled as an extremist for being intolerant of trans ideology and trans beliefs. I hold to the biological definition of sex, that is, there are two sexes, male and female, that are determined by your anatomy and your chromosomes. But someone might take offense to that, and people have often called me transphobic for sticking to science. I could be called an extremist for having such a view. People who oppose abortion and protest outside abortion clinics, or not clinics, centers, because then there's nothing to do with medicine, actually. People who even pray outside abortion centers may be labeled as anti-abortion extremists under this definition, and certainly under what Michael Gove is proposing as a new, widened and broadened and toughened definition of extremism, which is due to come in this week. Now, we've had an advanced snippet of what this may be, and it says it's going to include the promotion or advancement of an ideology based on intolerance, hatred, or violence. And it would also include anyone who seeks to undermine or overturn the UK's liberal democracy. Again, meaningless, fluffy, subjective words that could catch anybody, including those people are now being called the far right, whatever that means. I've been called that myself. Well, what is the far right these days? Anyone who espouses traditional family values or free speech, or opposes warmongering in Ukraine or the Middle East, or eats meat, or does gardening, or goes to the gym a lot and works out, is labeled as far right. These people are also, in many cases, labeled as extremists. Extremism is not something which should have a place in law or guidance or any kind of government policy because it is completely meaningless. The law should stick to criminal offences which are objective, not seek to bring everyone under criminal sanctions simply because someone in government doesn't like their words and are afraid of the power of words to call out the dreadful things that they are doing themselves. This is today's News Talk, TNT.